Well, hello there. Let's move the shadow from the phone here. Some more light here. The light shining up everywhere. Real estate with your host, Dick Pace. Yeah, I spent almost I still get it. So many people will, if they're pissed at me or they want to try and get a rise out of me, they go, "Hey, Dick," and I'm thinking it's like I get I get people always reach for that low hanging fruit first thing. I really do get that. It's easy. It's almost mindless to go after that. But to think of it, it's like you're going after a guy in his 50s, and your go-to thing is the most common insulting derivation of his name ever. I mean, there's just no way that anyone could think I haven't been called Dick before. I do it myself in terms of jokes. There's a whole bunch of like uh I don't want to do any of this. There's a whole bunch of dick jokes. A lot of them turn into memes with Nightwing from Robin. So if you're really curious, it's really easy to see them in no time at all. And it's just weird when people just think I'll get upset when they call me Dick. It's never worked. Although I gotta say, the thing that from my childhood that sticks is there's one guy in elementary school who went, Richard Pace is a complete disgrace to the entire human race. I thought that was clever. I really did. I really did. So it stuck with me. And when he said it to me, I was like, I laughed so hard. He was expecting me to be angry, and I just laughed. And I think that was when I realized the best defense against someone being an asshole to you is to find them funny, but not in a way that they want to be found funny. And yeah. So but it's like, yeah, I'm a dick. But in truth, I'm more of an asshole. Um so hey, hope you're having a good night. Dick Turpin and other heroes. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of heroic dicks out there. Um Another weird thing. It's like the only person who ever called me rich with any regularity was my mom. And I didn't like it when she did it. And I let her know once or twice, but it didn't stop her. She still kept calling me rich. And but everyone else who calls me rich, you immediately get a yeah, don't call me rich. Just don't. And so yeah, I for some reason I'm one of those weird people who likes a full version of their name. Everyone who likes me calls me Richard. Just one of those things. Now you know more about me than you did when we started. And as G.I. Joe always used to say, no one is half the battle. So the blue line's printed a little off kilter, which is not a big deal. I'll just straighten it up as I do the panel borders. And so little to correct in terms of the inks here that I can easily fix them after. Wow, my phone's making. Oh, I see what it is. I made a grocery order today because I just didn't have time to head out because I was just doing all the things. And it looks like my shopper's shopping now, which I honestly completely forgot about it. I thought it would have arrived by now. Oh well, say la vie. It's so weird to be working on 11 by 17 again after all those 48 pages and now revisions of the Conan book where I'm working on. I started on 15 by 20, and then when I got the new page dimensions from Heroic, Hang on. Do. Oh, they're not finding the one thing I really wanted them to get. Damn it! I hate when that happens. Um, Completely lost train of thought here. I was just dealing with all the noise from my phone. Um, yeah, it feels small. I mean, this paper feels really. I'm going to turn off the noise. Hang on. Oh, he's actually messaging me. Sorry about this, guys. Um, all right. Okay. I think he's done now. So that's good. Shoot. All the trees made me mess this up. Again, white paint fixes all sins. So if you're a longtime viewer, you remember a few weeks back I did the layout. I talked through the whole process. I think I should have the sheets on hand. The whole process of laying out this first page of the first witch story. Let's see if they're over here with the other work. No. Oh, no, that's some of it. That's like that's just one panel of it. Oh, here it is. Oh, it's pencils and layouts. And that's for another page. Okay. So I went through a whole bunch of different iterations of the witch layout page. I ended up with this really sketchy one, which is we talked through about like this proportion for the house image with the trees, the witch house logo, which I chose a font, and I'm blanking on the name of the font right now, but that's going to be the consistent font through all the witch Coven books as I do them. These two panels established standing in the woods close up with the girl. I think you might be able to see that in blue here. A bit more over that way. Then she enters the field walking towards the tree that we see up here with the pentagram by it. And as she stands by the pentagram, the tree that has a ribbon around it, which is going to be important-ish. And these are, what I did is I took these. So this is the last final layout. I scanned this, blued up, and printed out in light blue. You can see the light blue underneath the pencils here. And I do my pencils on it. So these are my pencils for this page. And scan this, clean up a bit, draw a little bit of stuff, move things around. One thing that might show up there is I just before I scanned, I went, you know what, I want that tree higher and I want this figure lower. So that's what I did in Photoshop. I moved the figure down, moved the tree up. Subtle things like that become important to me. So this is and not having to lightbox everything, huge time saving. And it's why I do it. So I think what I'm going to do tonight, I'm planning to the big panel. It'll probably be the slowest panel to do. So I think I'm gonna try. It's not sexy. It's a house, and I'm gonna try and make it look like an old house that's not in the best repair, but not dilapidated. And last message. So it's like, okay, cool. So it's all done. So I'll ink this. This is panels floating on the space here. So I do have to clean that up. There used to be a thing, I think, was it How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, where they recommended overdrawing your panel board, your panel edges, and then white painting them so they're sharp, super sharp. I'm not that fussy. I don't think readers are that fussy. My work is so sketchy, sloppy anyway. I don't know that anyone would notice. And there's been books, especially in Second Coming, where if I'm doing like the old world stuff, all my panel borders, even though I draw them initially with a ruler and everything, I'd ink them freehand. Um, but the idea being that if you overdraw the line, let's get this, make sure this is my favorite white paint marker for like just corrections, because the Molotow white paint, I can draw over it so much better than any other brand of white paint. So I don't mind making the correction now. Normally with like a standard white paint correction fluid like Pentel or anything else, I would save it for the last moment would be when I do those fixes. And because it's fragile, it might flake off, all these things. This stuff is so good. The Signal White is so good. I might have talked about this before. I actually bought like a refill container. Um, and if I'm doing like a large area of fixes, I'll take like a pop bottle cap and I'll just put some of the Signal White in it, and I'll use a brush and apply it, and it covers so beautifully. So quite fond of it. If you're looking for a good whiteout, I recommend it. Okay, so I think I'm actually going to move the camera up here a little bit. Focus up here. I'm going to start with the tree and the pentagram and the house, and then the trees in the distance, because I really want them to come across as almost that gray cloud that you see um, in late fall, winter, where it's like they don't look like trees. The trees have that solid dark green with the highlights on them. They just look like these scratchy swaths of gray wheat growing up way too high in the distance. Um, and the trees themselves are going to be incredibly dark, but a lot more detail, a lot more textural. I was contemplating making them birch, and like having it because I like the look of birch. It's fun to draw. But I like the idea of and I also part of the reason I wanted birch. I was thinking, oh, because the white of the birch would like just pop against the dark shape because the house is black. And I realized, no, I think I need dark trees surrounding. I want this to feel more um, like a standard deciduous forest than. Well, I mean, I think birch trees are deciduous trees. I'm not a tree expert, but um, I just feel dark trees against that kind of dried out grass of the field. That would make this pop nicely, and everything would lend itself more to that scritchy scratchy way I do everything, except for that. If you're a Patreon supporter, you saw a death drawing I did during a bout of insomnia beginning of the weekend. My friend Taffeta Darling, which is her screen name, she does a lot of amazing cosplay. And she posted, I think it was on Friday, she posted a picture of herself as Death from Sandman. So I drew her. I just grabbed a random sheet of Bristol after doing my initial drawing. Her body was doing something completely different. I just had the idea of like the swing down, the swing from her head down to her hips, back down to her feet here. The petite more, little death. The idea making that she's like a tiny death. And I grabbed this very, very, very shiny plate finish Bristol, and I almost put it back because everything. I love vellum. I love textural surfaces to work on, and I hadn't worked on a plate finish piece of Bristol. I have to say, at least 10 years. At least 10 years, probably longer. And it was really interesting. I was able to do incredibly microfine lines, but I was going for this very stark black and white image, so there wasn't much rendering anyway. And then the first ink I was using on this came out so shiny, it was distracting. You can even see some shine in here. I much prefer my matte black, so I ended up putting a second coat over most of the areas just to reduce the shine of the artwork. Um, but this was really fun. I loved her expression, and for the highlights, there's so much big highlights in her eyes. I decided to make them little skulls because death. Um, and yeah, so I'll probably throw it up in the shop next week this week it's all paintings, including the painting for the Displaced, Ed Brisson's new book from Boom, the retail exclusive I did. Um, I, it's pretty expensive, so I'm not sure it's going to go, but it's up there. And so next week it's probably I have some other I think endless pieces, so I might just make it an all endless gallery next Friday. So yeah, so that's what happens if I wake up at 2 in the morning and can't go back to sleep. Oh, talking here. Um, you know what? One of my favorite Neil Adams pages is from Superman Muhammad Ali, and it's when they're walking down. Oh, you know what? I probably can. I'm gonna go grab it. 1 second. I think I know for sure where this is. Sorry to run like that. I get excited when people talk about stuff. I feedback. All right. Superman Muhammad Ali. Neil Adams, man. My copy is so big, it's a joke. I think there's even some rips in this page. But it has one of my favorite all-time best street scenes in any comic book. And it's the opening spread after the first page. Look at this. I think Terry Austin inked a bunch of this. I mean, it's just, oh my God, look at that street. Um, I don't like drawing pointless street scenes. Um, like if it's just like, oh, we're just walking around, but we're not using the environment as a narrative tool of any sort. I hate street scenes like that, unless it's like we need to show this city, right? This is this environment that we're revealing in this book. So we need to show off the city. So give me beauty shots of this because it's important. So few writers actually know when the visuals are important. They'll call for a splash page of something incredibly, well, to me, in my mind, silly. And you're stuck drawing it because you don't want to piss off the writer because you're collaborating for who knows how long. Street scenes should be narrated. Everything. Oh, yes, he did. Everything you draw in a comic book should serve some sort of purpose, to my mind. I mean, it's inevitable if you're doing like monthly comics, you're screwed. A lot of what you end up doing is almost filler at times. But I think buildings should be characters if they're recurring building. That's not an excuse to like draw like stupidly insane complicated buildings that take forever to draw for no good reason. Um, but I really believe I haven't drawn like really old tile. I don't want to do like clay tile because they wouldn't have it. So I'm just going to suggest early asphalt tiles. Like this got put up like in the 50s or something, or refurbished at some point. As- Hopefully that's sketchy enough to implies that there's some wear in those roof tiles. Decided not to put eaves troughs. That felt too modern, like having all the spouts and everything. Um, if we get a detail in here, there's going to be like rain barrels and other stuff going on. But yeah, I think this particular witch house, I sketched it out from overhead. There's a double wide front, a slight extension to the, if you're facing this as the front, a slight extension, slightly shorter, slightly longer off to the side, which you can kind of see here, but I'll be inking at. Then there's an additional extension at the back, and that's the house. And it doesn't look like a massive mansion, but by the standards of most contemporary houses, it's big. And of course, one of the gimmicks I'm going to get into is that all the witch houses in North America are connected. And all you have to do is go down 3 hallways and through 2 doors, and you're another witch house. The trick is knowing which hallways and which doors to go through and which order to get to another witch house. It's a spell. It's one of the stories that's going to come up in one of the later ones where this character gets told how to get around to different witch houses. So the witches can pretty much travel anywhere in North America in minutes comparatively. Yeah. So this is a house that probably was built around them, but at some point it's been refurbished because the witches do want modern conveniences. There is indoor plumbing in this house, even though the house is ancient. I would imagine that the first witch that walked in and says, "Do you guys not have indoor plumbing?" And the other witch is like, "Indoor what?" And she explains it. Oh, we got to get that because I mean, just because the witches doesn't mean they want modern. They don't want modern conveniences. So I'm creating a dark shadow for this part up here. But now I've established that. I wanted to establish that there's these supports coming out. A lot of times, if I'm creating a fantastical building like this, I do what I call made up architecture, which it sounds a lot smarter in my head. Where it's like I have all these bizarre architectural books, uh, and something sticks in my memory, I'll add it, even if it isn't specifically appropriate to that house. If I was drawing a specific period house, I would actually have reference right here on the table beside me to make sure I'm not making mistakes. But as this is what it is, there's no such thing as mistakes. It's a house it's a living house as opposed to a house from a period. It's being changed by the magical creatures that live within it. Oh, some of you may not have seen it. If you're Coven backer and you're here, all the remarks and all the signatures are done. So I spent last week. This is how many remarks I had to do. So I think that's like 70 or 69 or something like that. And then they asked me to sign the rest of these. So, and it's like, I think it's like 25 book people just wanted to sign books, but there's going to be like so many tip-ins with just a signature. So lots. So I'll be shipping that out this week. Meeting with the production guy tomorrow. Did a lot of work on it, and I'm going to be asking for 4 more pages. I had like this long list of things. Oh, I can fit that in 112 pages. I can fit that in 112 pages. 100 pages are the witch drawings, right? Just straight up right off the bat, 100 pages are the witch drawings. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm kind of screwed for all these wonderful little designy grace notes I want to include in the book. And so I had to cut those back. But even cutting out a bunch of those things, like I went to Sheridan College and study illustration. And in my last year, I majored in book design and illustration. And let's see if I can. So I know the traditional architecture book, like the half title, blank page, full title, turn the page, all the production information, indicia, printings, all that stuff. Open it up. There's usually your table of contents, which I didn't really think that this book needed, but I initially put it down on my potential to-do list for this book. And and then it was like a preface, like I think I had 2 pages. I'd written up notes towards writing a preface for, like, what the hell was I thinking when I started this book? And all that stuff's gone. All that's remaining is title, a chapter page for each of the segments, for Witchy Wednesday 2022, which Tober 2022, Witchy Wednesdays, and which Tober 2023. And that automatically put me way over 112, just those pages. And I didn't think like just a book of just the pictures and nothing else would feel like anything other than cheap. Um, so I didn't want to just leave it at that. So I'm doing 116 pages, and there's going to be about the artist in the end. So that'll be that. So I don't think they're going to have a problem with me asking for like 4 more pages. It's just, everything goes in 4-page signatures now. So I'm establishing that there's a tree right in the backyard. That's the dark part. And I shift over to my 005. That's a 3. There you go, 005. I want the finest lines possible. Start creating that layered gray that these trees tend to put out. And the back hill is going to be running through there, so I can do a sketchy line. Don't want to layer too much with the just get that sense that there's an environment behind the house as well. It's not just floating in this grass here. You live in an 1870s house? Is that what you meant, Anson? Okay, that is cool. I live in an ancient apartment built in the 1970s. I do think I hate moving, but if I move again, I'm probably going to move to some place I want to, essentially die in. Not to get morbid, but I'd love to find like an old, not needing too many reservations house and more rural area around here. Oh, I think my stuff is already on its way. That's bizarre. Usually I stick it in a fridge. Oh, okay. I'll probably have to step away to grab my grocery order, and I just want eggs for tomorrow, really. Yeah, so I'd love to have like an old house, somewhat rural. Drive into the city once a week to get groceries and art supplies and socialize with people and everything. that would be ideal. I mean, I live in my apartment. I don't go out much other than the gym or hanging out with my son or something. And so living rural wouldn't be as an issue. And also, I like the idea of chopping firewood. So I want an old house with a fireplace, and then just wake up every morning, do your ablutions, go out, chop some wood. Some nice little physical exercise to start the day. Now I need to tilt that so I can draw that angle better. I'm also using 005 here, and it should be back up to one. That doesn't matter too much. Hey Daniel, how you doing? Teeny keyboard. Hmm. Oh, there's something. I think I talked about my long-term Zoop plans. Um, one of the things I was thinking of doing is a new sketchbook this spring. I have so much work that needs to be collected as into a sketchbook. It's not funny, but I kind of realized the first Coven book, for all intents and purposes, is a sketchbook. In terms of like how we market and produce these things in the comics market or comics adjacent market. So I was just thinking, it's like, yeah, you know what? I think the next thing I run on Zoop has to be more comics. So I'm gonna do the sketchbook some other time. What I'm thinking of doing is right after I finish the 8 or so stories for Tales from the Witch House, which is one of them. I'm going to start on the Viking horror book, We Bring Only Death. And I think that'll be my next crowdfunded book, and it'll be a comics project as well. And then sometime between We Bring Only Death and assuming that the tales this book is successful, I will do a standalone original graphic novel just based on the witch world. Here, I figure all the witch drawings and then a nice collection of short stories doing world building for the witches is good. But now that I've done all that work, I got to come up and tell the story. So I have one. I think it's pretty good. Yeah, I like having the time to think about it before diving into it, of course. And so then, not this Halloween, because this Halloween will be this book, but Halloween 2025 will be the the Witch graphic novel, the Coven graphic novel. And so I think sometime between We Bring Only Death and okay, I'm probably babbling a bit. Um, so yeah, so sometime between We Bring Only Death and then the Witch House graphic novel, I think that will be a great window to do another sketchbook because that'll have. I'm just assuming I'm going to have a ton of witch art uh, on top of everything else to add to a new sketchbook, but I also have developmental stuff for We Bring Only Death, plus all the character commissions I get to do. So I'll have a huge amount. I already have so much. I think it's going to be like a 300-page sketchbook, like just a really stupidly huge. It could even go to 400 pages because I was thinking I had enough for like 250 pages right now for a sketchbook. And let me know what you guys think. Uh, do you like those Kim Jong-gi sketchbooks, like those really, really massive, dense, just so full of everything sketchbooks? So it's like it's too much to go through at once. You got to keep returning to it. I love my Kim Jong. I have a couple in the next room. If you guys want to see one, I can pull one out and quickly show it to you guys. Um, but I would love to do like a 300 to 400 page sketchbook, and then do one of those every couple of years. So I do two graphic novels and or three even if scheduling allowing, because I'm really falling in love more with the idea of just doing stories that I write and draw and create and everything, and just diving into these worlds as a creative. Um, Such a tiny little area, so many lines. Yeah, so I think it's like every 2 years do like a really big thick sketchbook, and just lots of little graphic novels that I write and draw. Um, I got good friends who want to draw stories I've come up with, so I would also be writing for my friends to do stuff, like Christopher Mitten, who's an awesome, awesome, awesome artist. One of my favorite artists in the industry right now. Yeah, it's well, I'm so stupidly in love with my own title for that thing because it really evokes the entire idea what Vikings are, and and honestly, horror and Vikings. I think I said this last week. 'Cause this is another phrase I'm in love with. Viking horror is the Reese's peanut butter cups of genre fiction. I mean, you take Vikings, that's peanut butter. You take horror, that's the chocolate. Put them together. Oh my God, two great tastes that taste better together. Um, because I already have like six. I came up with a project for my friend Mike Ruth to draw, and if he doesn't draw it, it's a We Bring Only Death book. I have. There's just something so nihilistic, dark, and dangerous around an application of Norse mythology and various understandings of their culture, that just lends itself to this type of material, and I'm so excited to do it. My note file for We Bring Only Death Stories is already 7 stories deep that I've kind of worked out in somewhat detail, like detailed note card, like pitch cards, where I write in both sides, like what I think, where I think it's going, and I let those sit for a while, a couple months. And I go through it again, and if something, yeah, that was like an idea I was excited about because I had it. It wasn't an idea because it actually has merit, and and one of the ones that I think is really, I think it's going to be a surprise. I'm saying that literally the first three are just Vikings, um, like period Vikings. And but then I got one story I'm kind of excited about with this weird kind of like white supremacist Viking culture that we're dealing with right now, where they're trying to abscond Norse mythology and make it white supremacist, which is I don't really think works. And so I've come up with, I think, is a really good horror story around a white supremacist gang dealing with actual Viking horror in a way that they weren't anticipating. And it's basically a big fuck you to white supremacists. So I'm all up for that. I mean, one of my favorite things Marvel has ever done was cast Idris Elba as Tyr. Because if you don't know, it's a perfectly fine thing not to know this. The white supremacists, especially in Europe, have adopted Tyr as an icon for themselves. And the entire point of that is because Tyr is referred to as the white god. So, of course, not that white supremacists are a great brain trust of any stretch of imagination. So they were always a white god. And he stands on the Rainbow Bridge protecting Valhalla from interlopers. So they see themselves as like white culture protectors in Europe. And so when Marvel cast Idris Elba as Tyr, it pissed those guys off so much. I mean, when you talk about delicious tears from Schadenfreude, that's where I'll go. It's like whenever white supremacists are upset, I'm happy. I know the Vikings were incredibly open to other cultures. I mean, there's stories of them relocating and living perfectly harmoniously with other cultures. There's stories of them taking on warriors from other cultures and happily treating them as equals. Even the weird things like, I mean, Vikings were weird around homosexuality because they had weird ideas about masculinity, but they didn't have a problem with someone being gay as long as they were, able to provide for a family. I mean, in the traditional sense, it's like, that guy, he likes sleeping with boys. We're going to treat the person who's the bottom in the relationship with a certain amount of disrespect because they don't fit our traditional limited ideas of masculinity. But other than that, we don't care. I mean, there's a negative side to that. Of course there is. But I mean, it's not what you expect when you think about, culturally more primitive peoples. That's still on the screen. Okay, good. That's still on the screen. I mean, there's a lot to love about Viking culture. There's a lot to be terrified of it. It's deeply fascinating. I think it's far more fascinating than Rome. I mean, Rome's interesting, but Viking culture, especially since we've lost so much of it, because all the places where stuff's lost, that's space for me as a creator to make shit up that I can run with. So that's also part of the appeal. I can make up garbage and then say it's still Vikings, and no one can really say that's wrong. I'm in a real babbly mood. I feel like I'm changing subjects mid-sentence half the time tonight. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much. There's one of the things where I was talking to a friend of mine, and apparently there was a book that had Hitler teaming up with the Norse gods, and we had a long discussion about it. And it's like I could see Odin rocking with Nazis because Odin's a piece of shit. Um, More organized than power or anything else, at least in my mind. My reading of Norse mythology, he's not a good person or a good deity. But Thor would fuck up an army full of Nazis in a night and then go drinking with the enlisted men. I don't think Thor would put up with actual Nazis. So, um, so the loose outline is these white supremacists summon the spirit of a Viking warrior who gladly will fight with them because he didn't die in battle. I'm spoiling it, but it might change before I get to it. He likes the opportunity actually because then he could go to Valhalla. But when he realizes what he's fighting for, he ends up killing the white supremacists. So that's the gimmick. Perhaps spoiled, perhaps not. I 100% agree. Even if he wouldn't have, my headcanon, he would trounce racists and Nazis like crazy. I'm still using the 005. I should shift over to back to the 1. I'm getting fussier line work than I want in this sequence. Here it is. Yeah, I want these tiles on this side to be a little thicker. Line work's too fine there. There we go. So I'm capturing the idea that the sun's going down and they're getting reflections of the trees and stuff in the windows. So there's like kind of broken up light in there. This will be a color book, at least in my mind right now. When the time comes, I'm going to be sending complete stories to my flatter. I might run them in black and white on my Patreon and save the color for the actual book. But all these stories are going to be serialized on my Patreon. They're not going to go up till the stories are done. But everyone who's subscribed to my Patreon is going to see all of these stories fully lettered and drawn. Every once in a while, I just want to take a lean back and see if everything is coming together the way I want it to. I was talking to my friend about this, and he says, "Well, hold it. If all the houses are connected and they're like the TARDIS and that," which I kind of had like a knee jerk going, "Shit, yeah, I guess it's like the TARDIS." I'm not big. I respect what Doctor Who is. I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean, it's meant for kids. I'll enjoy it every once in a while when they got a really, really good doctor and some good writing going on. Um, but just the comparison to the TARDIS had me kind of like going, shit, I thought this was really original. But yeah, there is no real original stuff. There's some of these stories about houses that have so many extra rooms. Stained glass windows appear up top. Eventually, I'll do a scene in this room and you'll see them. But he had the idea. He says, you know what? There's literally, as long as you have a general shape and visual identity.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Did anyone hear me say the name of my Amazon device? It just spoke up there. He said, as long as I maintain the recognizable shapes of the houses, I can change stuff as I go, because he says these places are owned by witches. So why would they always be identical? And I like that bit. So I might. He said it's all mine, but it's like, I may steal it anyway. One of the important things to me is I'll set up the basic blocks of the house with accurate perspective, like just the blocks, but everything within the blocks is going to be freehand drawn, which means there's going to be a lot of mistakes. And I kind of want that. That's actually where he said, the shape of the house can change a lot. If the reality of the house is kind of like magically sloppy. It's kind of like the way Rob Liefeld's costumes change from panel to panel. Him from like lack of interest to keeping it consistent. For me, the witch house would be, well, you never know. The moment you look away, the house changes, which I guess could be another Doctor Who reference, but it's not intended as such. I think for the shadow of these windows, I want to jump back down to the 005. I want to obliterate the thick lines from the frame of the window, but I want to suggest some tone without going to my rubber stamps already. Doop. Oh, wow, didn't even knock on my door. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull the groceries from outside my apartment into my apartment and come back and work. take a look at the chat here. Well, the TARDIS, I meant, I was thinking about those statues that move when you blink. So if this house changes when you look away and look back, it's a little bit like those weird gargoyle creatures. I have a pentagram window here right above their entrance. Of course they do. Oh, the other thing I picked up this week, long delayed, but I finally got them. Those big artist edition books, the Kevin Nolan one, the Marvel art of Kevin Nolan. I really hope they do a DC art of Kevin Nolan one. If they've already done it, then I missed it. But the Marvel art of Kevin Nolan and the Marvel art of Michael Golden. Oh my God. I know I don't draw anything like those guys, but I love their work so much. Such brilliant stuff. They're too huge. I wouldn't be able to fit them on camera. Those books are like the size of my drawing table. I think I tried to show one of them a couple months ago, and it was kind of frustrating how little I could actually show you guys. It's just beautiful, beautiful books, and I almost have enough shelf space for them. That's the big worry whenever I get these books. It's like, damn, are they going to be sitting in a shelf buried away somewhere, or am I actually going to be able to pull them out and look at them for a couple of hours? Get a little darker there into that little eaves. Yeah, they're so good. Yeah, the Blink episode, the Weeping Angels. Yeah, is that Weeping Angels or Sorrowful Angels? Might be Weeping Angels. That sounds better. It's been ages. I think I liked. Oh God, what's his name? David Tennant. So I watched a bunch of the David Tennant ones. I love the Eccleston ones. Love the Tennant ones. I was okay with Matt Smith. I missed a bunch of them. My friends really recommended one. I go back and watch it. I love the War Doctor one with God, I'm blanking on his name. John Hurt. John Hurt is the War Doctor. I thought that was just brilliant. I mean, yes, it's children's entertainment, but every once in a while you can like just fill it with so much meaning. I felt I tried to really I was really interested with the new woman doctor. I felt they did her a gross disservice because the stories just weren't there for me. That might be me. I mean, I've been in the right mood. I just wanted her to to do so well. And then when the episodes came out, it was kind of like that was it. That's the best they could do for her. So I'm pissed on her behalf. I hope they did better by the end, but I just stopped watching at that point. I think that goes down there. So really going there. So this comes down here too. Here we go. There's gonna be tree covering all this. I don't know why I'm being fiddly, but I'm being fiddly. Yeah. So I saw a couple of Peter was the Van Gogh one Peter Capaldi where they brought Van Gogh to a modern museum and the curator was just raving about the importance of Van Gogh, and Van Gogh just started crying, and I'm choking up just thinking about it because it was so well performed and so well written. That was good. Peter Capaldi, I felt, was also given some pretty uneven writing to deal with, but I think that's pretty much problematic when you have to maintain a franchise for any length of time. You just run out of um, developmental stuff that actually has weight and meaning to it. It just eventually ended up retreading a certain amount. Yeah, she's such a good actress. I just felt every story felt off. And I was kind of like angry on her behalf, and I didn't want to. I basically walked away telling a couple of friends, if it gets better, let me know, because I want to see her, and I think she's got amazing charisma, and I think she'd be a great doctor. And I never got the word to go back, which is pretty telling. I think. I think Russell Davies is back now. I think, right? Fam stuff. Not sure I understand that, but again, I didn't watch so much of it. Good chance you're referring to something I just didn't see. Okay, the house is almost done. How are we doing time-wise? Oh, good. It's only 8. House is almost done. I think I need. I'll use the 05 for this. Yeah. Tree line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down almost like a loose gray tone for where that tree line is going to exist. It's going to get a little darker towards the bottom. Using double 5. Yeah. I'm going to do some very light lines going above it. So this story is taking place on October 31st, of course. Of course it has to. It's witch stories. So almost all the leaves are gone. Okay. No, but I was just wondering, it's like, what fam stuff I don't know. Because again, I wasn't watching it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just to establish the dark value of this, I'm going to do that tree in the midground now. So I can go on my 3. Establish a real nice dark base trunk. So that'll make it pop from the gray really nicely. Get some nice main struts to run the tree off of. So I want some of those darker branches to show through all the thousands of tiny fine lines I'm about to throw right on top of it. Yeah, I gotta do all the trees here. This tree right here with the pentagram. I'm gonna pull out the 0.1 here. So using the 0.1, I'm doing some secondary branches. So I'm not really drawing an accurate tree or like a specific type. What I'm doing is I'm doing a very generic tree with no leaves on it. And I find that there's a good way to get that stuff reading. So I start with thick lines, get the big branches and the trunk. And then once I feel like I have enough secondary branches, what I do is I almost start doing like wispy lines, just shooting off. And I don't care where they layer. Oh, this is a 3 again. My gosh. So I shouldn't have them all in my hand. This tree is tall, so it's going to be probably as tall as the house, but it's closer to the viewer. Might go back in and just tap almost like a stipple technique with the 3 to imply leaves that are still in this tree. I'll do it. What I could do, I can even like have these branches cover up this back part of the house enough. I can go and just touch little bits of white highlights to imply that some of the leaves are being hit by the fading sunlight. Going back to the 005 and checking this time to make sure I am using the 005. This is very much more, I guess, a illustrator's approach to drawing trees than a comic book artist. Traditional comic book artists can't spend this much time on a panel, which is why I'm increasingly more interested in just writing and drawing my own stuff. Because I mean, the time constraints and where you're allowed to focus your attention is a lot more modulated when you're working for a client. So it's like, yeah, I have to, have a giant sexy figure on this page to make the client feel like they're getting their money's worth out of the page. Whereas I'm a believer in the slow burn, almost literary approach to storytelling. That the reader is happy to wait for a really good visual payoff, as long as everything along the way is interesting and looks good. Smaller dots imply smaller leaves that are still clinging on. So how's that looking? Yeah, it's looking like a tree. Hey, G Money. I think I'm going to, we're already after 8. I'm going to finish this tree and this, and probably the pentagram and maybe the evergreen, just to get a sense of the depth going through so everyone knows what's going on. What I might do is I might save this page to work on next week because that seemed to be you guys seem to like the development of the page going through. I want to move past this. I want to dig more into the story, but I mean, I could happily just focus on these panels for a week or 2 more, and plus also spend some time talking about other stuff. like if you wanted me to demonstrate drawing something. There's some good suggestions last week in terms of like just potential fan art, like Miracle Man, Marvel Man, um, and oh gosh, I'm blanking on the other one, but Marvel Man stuck out. I haven't drawn that character. I think I did him once in someone's sketchbook, um, and that was maybe in the '90s. I've drawn Doctor Doom recently. In fact, I did that kind of that one where he's standing over a map of Latveria with a whole bunch of like just noisy screens behind him. I mean, there's some Kirby character like a Hellboy. There's certain Kirby characters I will draw in a heartbeat anytime. Doctor Doom, The Thing, Juggernaut, pretty much any of those blocky shape monstrosities he came up with. Give me those guys, I'll be nothing but a smile on my face as I'm drawing them. Especially The Thing. The Thing is just so much fun to draw. Some of his monsters are kind of goofy, um, but Kirby just made these big, fun shape creations almost effortless. Made him the way he drew them made it look effortless. From everyone else, it's like sweat, but they're just so fun. Galactus, I would draw Galactus any day of the week. I love drawing Galactus. I've drawn him a few times, mostly just headshots. I think one time I drew him from like the waist up, and I kind of went with a weird Mobius H.R. Geiger approach to the mechanics. I just love going crazy with like, oh, create your own Galactus. It's like, well, every Galactus you draw can be your own Galactus because of the way John Byrne came in later and said everyone sees Galactus differently. Wonder if John Byrne tried to take credit for that happening in Sandman. So you really get a sense of that tree line happening in the distance. I feel anyway, the tree in the foreground. Let me get the pentagram. So there is a stone at the heart, essentially the heart area of the pentagram here in the center. And it's dark, but it's not black. So I'm just going to do like that. And then there's the burn spots at the points where it looks like everything's been permanently burnt and scorched out. So it's blackened. Will make sense, especially if I show you guys the second page in development. This is the doorbell for the witch house if you want to become a witch. Dormammu would be cool. That's more of a Ditko thing. I think Ditko designed some really, really crazy good villains. Dormammu is pretty awesome. Mysterio. I think my favorite design by Ditko is his Mysterio. I'm drawing on my arm. I'm holding my pens like this, and I'm leaning on my elbow. So these are like scribbling all over the inside elbow of my right arm. I think I'm gonna cap them. Yeah, Mysterio. Wow. I actually thought the was it No Way Home? The use of Mysterio was really, really clever. Or no, is that I think it was Homecoming, wasn't it? No, guy, I can't remember. Yeah, I got like a small spruce growing here. There's no snow yet. Spruces are amazing to draw in winter. Pain in the ass drawing any other time of the year. Especially close up, but you got to do like all those needles going in the right direction with the other stuff growing in there. Yeah, it's hard to believe that Ditko was completely blitzed on LSD all the time. Yeah, honestly, okay, this is might that might be when I was a kid, falling in love with comic art. I was very much give me all the Buscema you can, give me all the Neil Adams you can, Wrightson, um, Kaluta, later Barry Windsor Smith, um, um, John Byrne, Walt Simonson, Howard Chaykin. Give me all those guys. And for some reason, at that in my teens, I could not stand Kirby or Ditko. Flash forward about 10 years later, I'm learning a lot more about drawing in the craft, and I really appreciate what they did, but I still wasn't able to generate any affection for their work. Here I am in my 50s. I love looking at Kirby. I've been whenever I see one, I'll pick up like a collection. Like I just the last thing I picked up was the trade paperback of his OMAC stuff. Part of me wants to do like a retelling of OMAC from the point of view of the artificial girlfriend. I'm blanking on her name because it's been months since I've read it. But just like a real short comic, just what was it like to be a semi sentient robot girlfriend in that world, and how they were using her to set up um, um, OMAC. I think I said Ultron earlier, didn't I? That'd be terrible. Um, but it's like still Ditko. I can read collections of his Doctor Strange stuff and some of his Spider-Man stuff, but everything about his work was so dense that it doesn't feel like there was any art there till much later in either of his runs on Strange or Spider-Man, where he actually started opening up a bit. It felt like the paneling was so dense, the drawings are so small, um, that he wasn't able to show anything in a way that actually did anything to me, did anything for me as an artist who wanted to look at stuff. And it was the period. I mean, don't forget, most comics seem to be like 9 panel grids. Here I am. I'm like, this is one, two, three, four, five panels, and it feels full to me. Um, and he had to do like these 22, 24 page stories with 9 panel grids, averaging what, something like 150 panels per book. I mean, oh my God, that's just so much work. It's crazy. I will happily. Oh, Osborne's hair. Oh my God. Um, it still terrifies me. You're not alone there. Um, yeah, I occasionally pull a 9 panel grid. I love grid storytelling. I do absolutely love it. I hate drawing 9 panel pages, but I love I love 9 panel grids. I've even done the Dark Knight grid, the 16 panel grid pages. I did a 3 page story in an anthology called Always Punch Nazis, like the last volume of it they did like years ago. And the only way they told me I had a very small window to contribute to the book, and they didn't have many pages to give me. So I took what was originally going to be like a 5 or 6 page 9 panel grid story, and I crammed it into three 16 panel pages, and it worked. I felt it worked. It was a little cramped. I found that afterwards they would have happily given me the extra pages. But I think it was a great experience working with that. I even somewhere in my studio I have like I printed a whole bunch of like drawing guidelines for 16 page stories, 16 panel page story for stories. So it's like I can literally sit down and plan out the beats right off the bat. But I'm just doing here, trying to give the idea that this is very uneven. It's an open field, so the leaves wouldn't stick. They'd blow around and cluster under the trees, in whatever direction the wind's blowing. So I'm just trying to get a sense of shag to this open grassy field. How are we doing? 819. I'm going to do at least one of these trees in the foreground. I'll do this one right here, just so you can see what I'm planning with it. I'm going to start with the 3, give it some real nice dark shape. Yeah. Yeah, I always forget about that because I'm only reading them in collections. I forgot that in the early days of Marvel, DC was in control of all the distributing, and so they only allowed Marvel like X number of titles a month. And the moment they took that stopper out, that plug out, Marvel just exploded. I think a lot of those books that were split off into one books got canceled pretty quickly, but replaced with the new perennial sellers that they had for years. Just going to give like big, long, heavy strokes to give texture and weight and a heaviness to these trays. Without having to worry. I might go back in and like do little highlights on branches and stuff, but I'm not too worried about that right now. And I find, to my mind, drawing a tree, even if you're drawing a grouping of trees like I am here, draw them one at a time, draw the branches wherever they go, then draw the next tree over top of it. And that way you'll end up with you'll get more organic, more natural looking trees because they'll end up having like lines that overlap in weird ways, branches that go in directions that you weren't anticipating initially. And with using the scribble thing, you get these dark spots on a tree that give more texture than you otherwise would get. Like I've done things where I'll draw like bark patterns. And it works, but you end up with to my mind, you end up with a flatter looking tree that you have to go in over and scribble on anyway. So I'd much rather scribble these bark patterns on top of my chunky rendering. A lot of these branches are going to get cropped off, but it feels like I should draw them anyway. Because the idea is to create this dark circle around the pentagram, so the viewer's looking at that most of all, because that's the focal point. It's all the information I want the reader to take in, but that's the focal point of this panel. Because then we're immediately 180ing to the would-be witch. Well, that tree went really fast. You know, I'm going to draw this one tree here so you can actually see what I'm planning to do with this tree, and then I'll stop it for the night. Yeah. Yeah, Nick Fury was weird. It really seemed to be like one of those characters that only really works. I mean, this is saying, I mean, there was like what, like a 100 issue series that ran in I want to say in the 80s, 90s. Back when Marvel could sell anything. But it really seemed like it was almost too experimental for the time, at a time when Marvel was doing so much experimentation. We're doing branches on that, and definitely a tree leaning against or up against the witch house. I am probably going to throw some little subtle white highlights to break. And I'm going over all that rendering I just spent all night on. To break up the tree coming in foreground. Although it looks dark, looks like it's advancing nicely already. I want your branches to overlap, give an idea that they're interlocking the way that trees do appear to interlock. Although trees are very careful, if you ever walk through a forest and you look up, it looks like there's these little rivers of sky running around each tree. I think there's a name for it. I can't think of it at the moment. And I want a branch going through there. There and it's just amazing. It's like the idea that these trees, as they grow up side by side and the wind moves them around, just by the touching against another tree when the wind's too strong, they actually kind of like rub off. the tips of branches and leaves and stuff. And it creates these safe zones between trees. I am going to go over and do the finer branches too. I'm just doing the main visual ones that you can see right off the bat. So part of the reason why I would spend all this time drawing the house and then drawing the tree right off the top of all the details I did, I'm going to be more accurate drawing the house in one piece and then obfuscating what I've drawn with the tree than risking not having it match up because of how loose my pencils are, and then having to fix it after everything's already rendered. So I'm happier covering up details I've drawn. In there, more sturdy there. Yeah, every once in a while you do a broken branch. There'll be some leaves on these trees in the foreground too, but not many. Not gonna get too fussy with that. Yeah. Which room? Very cool. How are we doing? We're 8:30? Almost 8:30. All right. Well, I think this is it for tonight, people. I have some other work to do. I kind of half-assed edit my friend's Death Tally comic book, and I did a cover for her zombie apocalypse like toxic relationship comic, Until Death. She was supposed to get published by a publisher that no longer exists as of COVID, and but she commissioned me to do another cover for it. So she still wants that other cover to come out. So she's doing a new expanded edition with a short story afterwards, and I'm supposed to edit that. So that's going to be an interesting experience. I'm working on that tonight. Next week, unless something radically changes, I'm going to keep working on this page. I'll finish this panel before next week so you guys can see it. And I'd probably be able to do these 3 panels in one session, one stream. I can do that in an hour and a half. And yeah, so unless something amazing comes up, so I'm going to work on that for you guys. Like I got someone who has given me a bunch of Star Wars sketch covers, like before COVID, and they keep meaning to get me to draw them. So if he actually gets off his butt and gets me to start on these, I might do a Star Wars sketch cover, which might be fun, like Vader or Luke or something like that. All right, so for those who are interested, you can find me on Instagram, Richard Pace on Instagram, Richard Pace on Blue Sky. I have a Patreon, cleverly enough, named Richard Pace, and I'm here every week. So if I don't see you on any of the other platforms, hopefully I'll see you here next Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys have an amazing week. Good night.